Good morning class 12th students. So this is your subject physics, chapter number 9, that is ray optics, and lecture number 7. So yesterday in last lecture we were studying about combination of lenses when there was some gap between the lenses and when there was no gap between the lenses. So today also we will be continuing with that. So let us start with today's lecture. So now if you look at this case, this is a combination of a convex lens and a plane mirror. Okay. Now this is the optical center O1 of this lens and this is the object O. Okay. So now I have taken a ray which is passing from the object such that after refraction it goes straight to the mirror, or you can say it falls normally on the mirror. So now as you know, when a ray is falling normally on the mirror, normally on a plane mirror, it retraces its path. So therefore this ray will retrace its path. So if you look it from the opposite side for this lens, that is, you can say a ray coming parallel to principal axis on the lens will pass through focus. So therefore we can conclude this OO1 is nothing but focus of this convex lens. Okay. Okay, so now similarly if you have a combination of a convex lens and a convex mirror, in this case what will happen, again this is the O1, that is optical center of this lens, P is the pole of this mirror and O is your object. Okay, so a ray is going from the object, and as you know, after passing through the convex lens it will go like this. Okay, so on this mirror it is falling like this. Now let us suppose this ray, if we produce this ray in the forward direction, and let us suppose it does not suffers any deviation, that is it passes like this only, that is after coming from this lens this ray falls on this mirror and it retraces its path. Now can you tell me in what condition will it retrace its path? That means if we produce this ray in the backward direction, then this point should be the center of curvature. Only then this ray will be perpendicular to this mirror, and therefore it will retrace its path when it will fall on the mirror. So from here we can conclude here that Pi dash is nothing but the radius of curvature of the mirror, and therefore focal length will be Pi dash upon 2. Okay. Now in third case, if we have a combination of a convex lens and a concave lens. Okay, so again this is your object. O1, O2 are the optical centers of both the lenses. Now again a ray is going from the object to the convex lens. After passing through this, it will bend like this you know. Okay, now as you know, a ray falling on concave lens diverges. So therefore this ray which was initially coming like this will diverge due to the concave lens, and the final image will be formed at I. Okay, so now if I produce this ray in the forward direction, this will be your I1, that is the image formed by this lens if this was not there. Okay, so now as I have told you earlier also that this image will now act as a virtual object for this lens. So this will be the U for concave lens and this will be the V for concave lens. Okay, only due to the concave lens the image is formed here at this point. Okay, so these are the U and V for this concave lens. So these were the some combinations. Now as you have studied lens maker's formula in last lecture, that is 1 upon f is equals to mu minus 1 into 1 upon r1 minus 1 upon r2. So related to that formula, I'll be explaining some things to you. So the first is that focal length of a convex lens or a concave lens is maximum for red color. That is, suppose if you have a focal length and if two different colors of light are falling on it, for example, let us take red and blue color. So therefore, for the red color, the focal length of the lens will be maximum. Now let us see how does that happens. So as you know from the lens maker's formula that 1 upon f is equals to mu minus 1 into 1 upon r1 minus 1 upon r2. See, if you have the lens, then the r1 and r2 will remain constant for that lens. So this quantity remains constant. 1 is also a constant. But as you know, your red light has maximum focal length. Okay, and red light has maximum wavelength, and wavelength is always inversely proportional to the refractive index. Okay, so now because red light has maximum wavelength, that means refractive index will be minimum for that. If refractive index is minimum, and as you know 1 upon f is directly proportional to mu, so if mu is minimum, f will be maximum for red color. So you can say focal length will be maximum for red color for both the lenses, either for concave lens or convex lens. So if you want to know the explanation through diagram, so look here, see, this is again the convex lens. I have taken two cases in which the red light and the blue light is falling on the same lens. So in this case what will happen, as you know the focal length will be maximum for red color, so the red light will bend very less. So red light will bend very less, and therefore a very large focal length will be there for this red light. But if blue light is there, because wavelength of blue light is less as compared to red, so for that focal length of this lens will be small and therefore it will bend more. So you can say red light will bend less and blue light will bend more as compared to red one. So focal length will be maximum for red color and it will be less for the blue color. Okay. Okay, so the second example is, suppose you have a lens which has a refractive index of mu1. Initially it was placed in air, that is mu a refractive index of air, and it has a focal length of f. Now the question is, if you place this lens in a medium of water, initially it was placed in air, now we are placing it in a medium of water. So the question is, what will be the effect on the focal length of this lens? Okay, so again for this we will be using your lens maker's formula. So the lens maker's formula is 1 upon f is equals to mu minus 1, and as I told you earlier, mu is nothing but mu of lens upon mu of medium minus 1 upon into 1 upon r1 minus 1 upon r2. Now see, in these two cases mu1 will remain same, that is your mu of lens will remain same. R1 and R2 of the lens will also remain same. So only the changing factor is the refractive index of medium, and in this case refractive index of medium is increasing because it is air and this is water. So therefore you can say all the factors will remain same, only this this refractive index of medium will increase. So now as you can see from here, focal length is directly proportional to mu m, or you can say if mu m is increasing, that means mu l upon mu m, this factor will decrease, and if this factor is decrease, then obviously the focal length will also increase. Okay, so you can say 1 upon f will decrease, or you can say focal length will increase. That means if the lens is placed in a medium which has a higher refractive index, then the focal length of the lens will also increase due to the increase in refractive index of medium. Now suppose instead of lens, if the mirror was placed in the water. So now as you know, the focal length of a mirror is given by r by 2. So therefore there is no factor of mu in the formula of focal length for a mirror. So we can say there will be no effect on the focal length of a mirror when it is placed in different mediums. So its focal length will remain same. Okay, so the next is, suppose you have a convex lens. Okay, an object is placed here, and for this real object a real image is formed at I, and you are given the distance between object and image to be d. Okay, now it is asked what should be the maximum focal length of this lens to form a real image at I. Okay, and you are given the distance between object and image, that is d. Okay, so now what we will do, see, if the real image is formed at I, that means this distance is v. If this distance is v, so this distance will be d minus v, or you can say the distance of object will be d minus v. So now let us use lens formula. So lens formula is 1 upon f is equals to 1 upon v minus 1 upon u. So because this is in opposite direction of incident light, so it will be negative, so that will be minus will be plus. So upon 1 upon d minus v, that is 1 upon f is equals to 1 upon v minus 1 upon u. So from here, if you take the LCM, you will get 1 upon f is equals to dv minus v square in the denominator and d in the numerator. Okay. So now after cross multiplying it, you will get df is equals to dv minus v square, or you can write this equation in the form of a quadratic equation like this, that is v square minus dv plus df is equals to 0. Now to solve this quadratic equation, we can use the formula minus b plus minus under root b square minus 4ac upon 2a. This all of you know. So I have just used that formula. V will be equal to minus b, that is your minus b will be d, plus minus under root b square, that is b is d square minus 4ac upon 2a. A is 1. You can just compare with the quadratic equation and you can solve it. Okay. So now one thing is here, that in question it is given to you that the image formed is real. So for the real image, that means this quantity should also be real, or you can say d square minus 4df should be either greater than or equal to 0. So from here, if you take it this side, it will give you d square should be either greater than or equal to 4df. 1d will cancel out, so you will get d should be greater than equal to 4f. So you can say 4f is the minimum distance to get a real image. That is, either the distance should be equal to 4f or it should be greater than 4f to get a real image. Okay, so now because we are asked focal length, so from here we will be calculating focal length. If I take 4 to be this side, so that will give you d by 4 should be greater than equal to f, or you can conclude it as that focal length should be either less than or equal to d by 4. That is, d by 4 is the maximum value of focal length to get a real image, where d is the distance between the object and that real image. So remember these two factors. This one, that focal length should be either less than or equal to d by 4, and the distance should be either greater than or equal to 4f. Okay. So we have studied all the combination of lenses, different cases we have seen. Now we will be starting with prism. Okay, so the prism is the portion of a transparent medium bounded by two plane surfaces inclined to each other at an angle. That is, in a prism you have two plane surfaces and they are inclined to each other at an angle. For example, as you can see here, this ABC is a prism. These two surfaces are inclined to each other at an angle which can be called as angle of prism. Okay, so angle of prism is defined as angle between two faces of prism, that is, one on which light is incident and the other from which light emerges out. In further derivation, we will be taking that on this face AB the light will be incident, and from this face AC the light will emerge out. So these are the two surfaces on which light is incident and on the other from which light is emerging out. So the angle between these two surfaces will be called angle of prism. So A is nothing but angle of prism. Okay, so now let us see how the refraction occurs in a prism. Okay, so to understand refraction through a prism, first of all look at this diagram. Okay, so here ABC is a prism. Okay, A is the angle of prism. Okay, so a light ray is incident on the surface AB, or you can say on the plane AB. Okay, after that it is refracted from this surface and it travels parallel to the base BC, and after that it emerges out from the face AC like this. Okay, so these are the OS and OP are nothing but the normal drawn on the plane AB and AC. Okay, so see, if this is the normal ray and this is the incident ray, so this will be the angle of incidence, right? Now this is the refracted ray and this is again normal ray, so this will be the angle of refraction, that is R1. Now this ray is incident on this surface like this. So again this is normal to this surface, so I am denoting this angle by R2. After that it emerges out and this is the normal, so this will be your angle of emergence, so I am denoting it by I2. Okay, so I hope it is clear. Angles I1, R1, R2 and angle I2. Okay, so now I am producing this ray in this direction. Okay, so this is the incident ray and this is your refracted ray, or you can say emergent ray, right? So this is the angle of deviation, that is the angle between incident ray and the angle between emergent ray is called angle of deviation. So to define angle of deviation, it is the angle between incident ray and emergent ray, and I have plotted some points, that is O, Q, R, S, P and M. Okay, so now we will be deriving some equations through which we can relate this angle of deviation and angle of prism. Okay, and one more thing, this case when this ray is passing parallel to the base is the case of angle of minimum deviation that I'll be discussing later. So for here you can just remember it to be angle of deviation. Okay, so now to calculate the relation, let us consider triangle MQR. That is this triangle, triangle MQR. So as you can see, del is the exterior angle of this triangle. So using the mathematical properties, you can say angle del is equals to angle MQR plus angle MRQ, right? So therefore angle del can be written as angle MQR plus angle MRQ. Now see, this is I1, this is R1, and we want to know this angle. So this angle will be nothing but I1 minus R1. Similarly, this angle will be I2 minus R2. So just putting the values, angle MQR will be I1 minus R1 plus angle MRQ will be I2 minus R2. Now I am taking the angles of I on one side, that is I1 plus I2 minus in bracket R1 plus R2. So this is your del, mark it first equation. Okay, now in triangle OQR. In triangle OQR, so this is angle R1, this is angle R2 and this is angle O. So as you know, the sum of three angles of a triangle is 180 degree. So we can say angle R1 plus angle R2 plus angle O will be equal to 180 degrees, mark it 2. Okay. Now let us consider quadrilateral AQOR. That is quadrilateral AQOR. Okay. So the sum of opposite angles of a quadrilateral is also 180 degrees. So we can say angle Q plus angle R will be 180 degree. As well angle A plus angle O will also be 180 degrees. So I have just put the value, angle Q plus angle R will also be 180 degree and angle A plus angle O will also be 180 degree. Mark it equation third. Now comparing equation 2 and equation 3, you can easily conclude that angle A plus angle O will be equal to angle R1 plus R2 plus O. Okay, so from 2 and 3 we have got this equation that angle A plus angle O is equals to R1 plus R2 plus angle O. So from here angle O will cancel out. So you will get that angle of prism A is equals to R1 plus R2. So you have to remember this. Okay, so that means you can conclude the angle of prism is equals to R1 plus R2. Remember what is R1 and R2. R1 is the angle of refraction of the ray which is falling on AB, and R2 I have taken the angle of incidence of the ray which is falling on AC. Okay. Now from here you can also conclude that from equation 1 I have written del is equals to I1 plus I2 minus R1 plus R2 in equation 1, and here we have concluded that R1 plus R2 is equals to A. So from equation 1 del will come to be I1 plus I2 minus A. Mark it fifth equation. So these are two general equations which are relating the various angles. Okay. Now if we suppose mu is the refractive index of medium, then as you know by Snell's law, sin I1 by sin R1 will be equal to mu by 1. So this is on face AB because I1 and R1 are the angles on the face AB, right? So if I consider the angles to be very small, so as you know, if the angles are very small, sin I1 becomes nearly equal to I1 and sin R1 will become nearly equal to R1. Okay, so you can say I1 upon R1 will be equal to mu. From here I1 will be equal to mu R1. Similarly, if you apply Snell's law on the face AC of the prism, you will get I2 is equals to mu R2, right? Now put the value of I1 and I2 in equation number 5. So your equation number 5 is del is equals to I1 plus I2 minus A. So from I1 plus I2 I have taken mu common, that will become R1 plus R2 minus A. Again from equation 4 you have written R1 plus R2 is equals to A. So that will become mu A minus A. This will be A. Okay. So therefore del will become mu minus 1 into A. But always remember this formula will only be used when you have small angles, because to derive this we have taken the condition that there are small angles. Okay. So now we have, up till now we have derived three equations, two general equations, that is angle of prism is equals to R1 plus R2 and del is equals to I1 plus I2 minus A. But if the angles are given to be small, then you can say del is equals to mu minus 1 into A. So up till now we have derived a general formula. Now we will be, in next lecture I will be telling you the angle of minimum deviation, and we will be deriving prism formula using the using the angle of minimum deviation. Okay. So now let us do the let us do the homework of your last lecture. Okay. Okay, so the first is question number 19. It says, for image of a small electric bulb fixed on the wall of a room is to be obtained on the opposite wall 3 meters away by means of a large convex lens. What is the maximum possible focal length of the lens required for this purpose? Okay, so you have to calculate maximum focal length, and the distance between object and image is given to you to be 3 meters. Okay, so now as you have studied, for real image distance should be either greater than equal to 4f, right? So therefore minimum distance should be 4f and it is given to be 3, so that means 4f should be equal to 3. From here focal length will be 0.75 meters. So this is the maximum focal length of the lens. Okay, so as you can see here, by remembering some formulas we can very easily do some numericals. So it is always beneficial to remember some formulas. For example, you can remember this, that for if you are given the distance between object and image, then the minimum distance should be equal to 4f to get a real image. Okay. Okay, so the next is question number 20. It says a screen is placed 90 centimeters from an object. That is, if you have an object and this is the screen, they have a distance of 90 centimeters between them, right? Then the question says the distance of the object on the screen is formed by a convex lens at two different locations separated by 20 centimeters. That is, we are obtaining image on the screen of this object by using a single lens at two different positions, and the distance between those two positions is given to be 20 centimeters. Then the question says determine the focal length of the lens. Okay, so for that, see, if this is the object, for this position the image is formed here, so you can say this is u, right? Now for the second position, when the object is when the mirror is placed here, the image is again formed at this and the object is this. Okay, so because the real image is formed, and always remember the real position of real object and a real image are always interchangeable. That is, if suppose if this object was kept at here, then its image will be formed here. So therefore we can say that we can take this position as u as well. Okay, so from the figure you can say u plus 20 plus u will be equal to 90 centimeters. Okay, so the theory I am using here is that a real object and a real image are there. If they are there, then their position are interchangeable. It does not matter if you keep the position of object. It doesn't matter if at the position of object if you place the image, then also the u and v will just get interchanged. That is, if the object is here, its image will be here, and if the object is here, its image will also be here. Okay, so from here you can write down 2u plus 20 is equals to 90 centimeters. So from here you can easily calculate u, that will come to be 35 centimeters, right? So now you know u to be 35 centimeters, you can easily calculate v, and then you can use lens formula to calculate focal length. Okay, so u is the in the opposite direction of incident light, so u will be minus 35 centimeters, v will be 90 minus 35, that is 55 centimeters. So just use lens formula, that is 1 upon f is equals to 1 upon v minus 1 upon u. It will give you 1 upon 55 plus 1 upon 35. So when you will solve it, focal length of the lens will come to be 21.2 centimeters. Okay. Okay students, so after going through today's lecture, you can do question number 6 and question number 22 from your chapter number 9 of your NCERT book. Thank you.